Hello and welcome. My name is Don Putkela.
And I'm Angela Putkela.
And I wanted to welcome everyone today to our podcast. This is actually episode number 12 of Welcome to Livingston. So I'm pretty excited about us actually making it 12 episodes now.
Yeah, this is great because it's presented by the Putkela Group.
Yes, we are realtors in the Livingston County area with Keller Williams. We run a team called the Putkela Group. And this is our podcast, which is all about Livingston County.
Yeah, big focus on community, where community meets real estate. We love that.
Yep, and I thought that we would take a moment today, 12 episodes in, to kind of start off a little bit and just start talking about the podcast, how we thought it was going so far, a little bit about maybe what we learned and such. So what do you think? How do you think we've been doing so far?
But then also segueing into, the whole purpose behind it, where people we're moving into Livingston and to be a really good resource for that, right?
Yeah, 100%. The real purpose behind the podcast was this whole idea that we had where we run into so many people that don't know about the community. They don't know about Livingston County. Maybe they're moving here for the first time, either from out of the county or out of state, or they're first-time home buyers and they're just getting started, or even ones that have lived here for 15, 20 years.
Right. There's certain little events or small business that maybe those that have lived here 20 years like us still don't even know either. There's so many great things about Livingston County that it's been really fun so far to be able to share a lot of these things.
Oh, yeah, no, we've talked to some really interesting people through the first 11 episodes, and I'm just looking forward to talking to a lot more people. But the thing that I find the most interesting and what I went back to on it is that whole idea of how often over how many years have we been in the county now?
It'll be 20 in March of
20 in March. Mm-hmm. How many times I've gotten off the freeway and Main Street has been closed down and I didn't know that a festival was going on.
Yeah.
Or I pulled in to go to a shop or a retail establishment and there was a new place right next door that I was like, oh my gosh, when did this open up? And it had been there for 6 months.
Yeah. Some of these places that, hadn't had a chance to get to, it's been really fun to focus on featuring some of those. Like when we had Karate's Pizza in and had a chance to eat there and talk to them and little things like that, that gives us a chance to kind of get out and find some of these places and bring them into our listeners.
Yeah, we actually have some great episodes coming up. Last week we had Orange Theory on, which was awesome. And we actually have Mount Brighton coming up soon, which I'm really excited about talking to them and the things that they're going to be doing in the community.
Absolutely, for sure.
But one of the things, kind of the focus of today's episode is this whole idea of moving into the county. This whole idea of when you come in and you don't know what's going on, relocation.
Right.
Yeah. So
we're seeing a lot of people coming in from out of state. For a long time, people were moving from Michigan to other states, but now it feels like it's turning and people are coming back in.
Right. So in the past 2 years, especially since COVID started, we've helped quite a few people who their only entrance into, hey, this is the community I want to live in or the house that I want to buy is that they saw pictures of it online. Right.
And we've helped people from other places before, but I think the technology has changed in the past 2 years, particularly with COVID, that's where we've just noticed such a huge rise in this.
Yeah. So what I wanted today to be is kind of a resource for those people that are in that process. So, the first thing I wanted to talk about is if you're out there and you're relocating or you're going to look at a house and you're not able to physically go see the house, there's just some things that you really want to keep in mind as you get started. And as real estate agents, there's things that we do to make sure that our clients feel very comfortable with the process, because it's real estate doesn't have to be stressful, but sometimes it can be. And it's our job to make sure that it's not stressful.
Right. We educate our clients and we give them as much information as we can. So that way they can make an educated decision. And when they can't be physically right here in that moment, sometimes people are over on the east side and a hot new listing comes up and they're not able to make that drive. So, near or far, there's great practices that can be done. So why don't you tell us about
Well,
some
yeah,
of
no. And the reason this came up is I'm actually helping a client right now that's moving from out of state. So I'm actually going through this process right now, which is why it's very top of mind with me. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is showings of houses when you are out of state. So I just showed a house last week where I did the entire showing on FaceTime. And I thought that one of the very interesting aspects of it is when you're online looking at a house, the pictures say one thing, but the experience is sometimes something different. You can't see layout online. Even when there's a video, it's not the same as being there in person. So I took about 20, 25 minutes to walk through the house, room by room, asking them questions of, what did you think about this room? What questions do you have about this? They would say, hey, I want you to open up the pantry. I want to see how big that is. Or turn around again. Where is this an aspect to that? But that process starts when I'm on the phone with them before I go in, and you're talking about their motivation. You're talking about what is it that they're looking for in a house. Because when you're going through the house, there's not as much, sometimes that doesn't come across.
Right. Yeah, it's a different process. And I think it takes a lot of special listening and conversations outside of that moment.
Right. But one of the things that I thought was most interesting is the community aspect of it. That when it got to the point of we were done talking about the house, we were done talking about the rooms of the house or the yard, it was, where was it an aspect to the community? And then it became a whole different education process, which is where this whole Welcome to Livingston comes into that, because they wanted to know, where was it in relation to grocery stores, or how far did I have to go to get to
gas station,
movies, freeways. Where was it an aspect that you can Google it, but Google isn't the same as talking to someone and saying, well, right down the road is a Bush's, or it's, there's some areas in Livingston County where, if you need to get milk, you better wonder how much gas you have in your car.
That's a fair point, for sure. And the interesting part about Livingston County is it's so close to Lansing, Ann Arbor, Novi, and in town, up in Flint. And so part of that is finding for our clients, which metropolitan area is it that they want to be closer to. So for those that really are tied more to the Ann Arbor side, then some of the communities in Livingston to the south tend to be better options. Same thing with, those in the north, or those, for the people going out to Lansing.
But it is accessible to all of them.
Absolutely.
We're unique that we're about a half hour from everywhere, right? And me and you were talking this morning about this idea of, are we a bedroom community or are we not a bedroom community? And how does that aspect change? Because, statistics, and if you look at the trends and such, a lot of people that live in Livingston County do not work in Livingston County.
Yes, it's a remarkable statistic.
Yeah, I think it's like upwards of 60% of people that live in the county don't work in the county. So having those freeways, having those access to other areas becomes so important. But, it was just an education process of talking to the client about the community, talking to the client about where they want to be in the community. Because when I have local people that come out to look at a house and they ask me about a neighborhood, I'll tell them, hey, go downtown, park the car, take a walk, go out to dinner. You'll know within the first 15, 20 minutes if this is the place for you. But when they're 6 states away, they can't do that. So now they're going on our expertise to be able to help them in that process.
Very true. And sometimes it's the house itself that drives that, right? That there may be certain, features of a house or amenities in a community that some of our townships and cities, there's a different price differential, right? So some communities you get more bang for your buck than others. And others, we've had people that really want it to be as much of an urban type of area of close to a downtown walking distance. And that is a factor.
Yeah, walkability becomes a big factor. But, you mentioned that with bang for your buck and that, and I wanted to make sure to take a moment to talk about taxes for a second, because I think a lot of people out there, they get confused by that a little bit. And I had, again, with the conversation of the clients I have right now, we were talking about pop-up taxes. We were talking about the difference between how taxes are assessed because they were in another state and things worked very differently there. And I think sometimes as agents, people forget these things. While they're very normal to us and we understand them, we have to make sure that our clients understand them as well. So
Right.
whether something's paid in arrears or paid in advance.
So why don't you tell the listeners what's the difference there?
Okay, so if taxes are paid in advance, that means that the person that's in the home has already paid taxes for future dates, meaning that when the buyer purchases the house, they have to pay the seller back for those unused portions of taxes. In arrears is the opposite. So when you're going into purchasing the home, the seller is actually paying you back as the buyer for taxes that have not yet been assessed. So
Ingham County predominantly is in arrears, whereas
yes.
Livingston County is predominantly in advance.
Yes.
I think almost exclusively.
Actually exclusively in Livingston County.
Yeah.
So in Livingston County, we're 100% in advance, which as a seller, that means that you're going to get a credit at closing.
Right. So that makes it a little easier to factor in. But you had mentioned the pop-up tax, and that's kind of an interesting thing that we find a lot of people aren't aware of.
Yeah, so pop-up tax. So taxes can only increase. There's a cap on them. Usually it's around the rate of inflation. So if someone has been in a house for 20 years, the value of their house has outpaced the taxes of their house because you're assessed on your state equalized value, but basically understand that you're taxed basically on half the value of your home. So when you've been in a house for 20 years, you're paying a much lower chunk of taxes than you would the exact same house that just sold yesterday.
Right. Well, so when that person sells the house, and that's where it's relevant to a buyer coming in, that when we have a buyer that's purchasing a house that, was sold 4 or 5 years ago, it's not as much of a factor. But when it's 20 years ago, 30 years ago, then at that point in time, the taxes that they have recorded on there, wow, those are great taxes. That's really low. It's like, well, be prepared for the pop-up tax. It shows up, 6 to 12 months later?
Yep. Usually about 6 months later. And if you have a lender, they'll help you prepare for that. But it's something to be very conscious of.
Yeah.
Because, we always warn our clients at that. The last thing I would want a client to do is for me to pick up the phone 6 months later and then to say, hey, Don, my taxes just went up by $2,000. And why didn't you warn me about that? How did this happen?
Yeah, that will never happen with us at all. But that's, in terms of any buyers out there, whatever realtor you use, just be aware if it's been a long time since that house was sold, then it's an important thing to be prepared about, to know that the taxes that they're showing, that the lender is going to work off of, will likely be adjusted more accurately because
100%.
They can be uncapped by the township.
Yes, and that brings me to pre-approval national versus local for someone that's coming in and they're relocating. That there is a little bit of a difference, and communication just becomes a very big factor. So as the agent, it is our job to make sure that all of that communication happens, that if you're relocating into an area and you're using a national lender, that you're making sure that they understand all of that information is coming across, that they know that a pop-up tax is happening, or you're going to get a lot more questions when this is a relocation, and me and you as the agent, we're the boots on the ground.
Yes.
We're the ones that can actually get all of those questions answered, and knowing what questions to ask become really important.
Excellent. And I feel like, in terms of maybe why this is becoming more of a thing in terms of people moving in from out of state, is that because of technology. You can use that FaceTime to see the home real time.
Right. And in some cases, they actually have videos too.
Right. But e-signing, is so much easier for things. They're not quite there yet for closings, but for a lot of the documents.
Yeah, nowadays just about everything can be done electronically. And even though it's done electronically, that doesn't mean that I'm still not walking them through the process step by step. A lot of times they'll send a PDF over of the entire contract and say, okay, we're going to get on the phone here. Maybe even we'll do a FaceTime or something where we talk through the entire thing before we send it for e-signing. Because one of the things that I find interesting is some people get into them and they'll click, 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 and then they'll be done. And then they'll call me up and they'll say, I think I signed everything. And I'll say, well, how long were you looking at it? They're like, well, I got the whole thing done in a minute and a half. And I'm like, no. We need to slow down. We need to talk about these different things and everything so you understand what you're signing, because in this aspect, again, there's a huge level of trust and a huge level of fiduciary and accountability because of its being so remote.
People know what they're signing.
Yep.
Because it's too easy to glance over and just take care of paperwork. But there's so much in that purchase agreement that for buyers, they should be aware of and know and understand. And earnest money deposit is one of those, which, there used to be a time where people, especially some of the young people, I don't have a checking account. But even for somebody out of state to write a check, it's, new technology that allows us to. Yeah,
they can do all of that electronically now. And I think that's interesting that you brought up that point that a lot of people don't have checking accounts anymore. Mm-hmm. They have PayPal and they have Venmo, but they don't have a checking account. And unfortunately, you cannot pay an earnest money deposit through PayPal or Venmo. So having a way of doing that and being able to explain that to them. And I guess that's the whole point of going through this today is there are a lot of steps and there is a lot of open communication that needs to happen within that. And I know this is probably a pretty dry topic, but it's important to go through those things. There's just a big difference between even laws in certain states, or differences between what a client thinks is the process versus what the client perceives and then what the process actually is.
Because in different states, things are handled very, very differently.
Right.
I mean,
just in terms of who pays the fees.
This is true. Something as simple as that. But even Texas, for example, that's a huge, large, major degree that people get even to become
their purchase agreement can be 30, 40 pages long.
Right. Versus Michigan, where just a handful of pages, really.
Right.
But that's kind of the strange part. Some, there's lawyers reviewing everything. And
right.
Michigan's not one of those states.
Yep. So I guess...
Not generally. They certainly can, though.
100%. Everyone has the opportunity to have a lawyer review that stuff. But in some states, that's required.
Right.
And in our states, it's not. And just understanding those little bit of differences. And I guess that's where that education piece comes in. So, I mean, if you picked up the phone tomorrow and it was a call that came in and said, hey, I'm in Tennessee, because we actually had someone come up from Tennessee and say, hey, I want to move here. The interesting thing is there's two ways that I look at that in terms of doing showings, and I've done it both ways. There's I'm going to go through each house and I'm going to preview those houses for you. And sometimes I'm going to do FaceTime. Sometimes I'm not. I'm going to make some phone calls and such. But I'm going to have a long conversation with you about this is what you're looking for in a house. And I'm going to weed through the bad houses till we get to the really good ones and do the entire thing remotely. Right. And then there's the other way where we had a couple come in and we looked at 17 houses in 2 days.
Right. That works too. Or sometimes, part of why they're coming back to Michigan or to Michigan is because they have family or friends here. And so that's not unusual for us to have a family member or a friend also be that second look. But
right. Almost like the surrogate buyer.
Right.
That they're there for the process with us.
In a way. But even by the same token, we have had clients completely purchase a home just off of the video. So everybody's different.
No, everyone is different. I think those videos, it's so amazing how much technology has changed in the past 10 years. Yeah. That now you can, the videos, you have the 3D videos of a home where on the computer it looks like you're in the room and you're looking at the different angles and such. And, I'll take those for what they're worth. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But it's a great tool and a great resource to be able to have sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So much to it for sure.
There's a tons of things to it. And just looking at that aspect of moving cross country using pods and such, I could get into those much more. But just know that those are also important aspects to sit down and to have conversation about and to do your research.
Right. There's different options, and it's just knowing what those options are really half of the battle.
Exactly. That's a really, really powerful aspect to it. But one of the things I kind of wanted to spend a few minutes on and talk a little bit about today is here we are 12 episodes in. We've met some really great people. We've done, some nice topics and such. But I know one of the things that you especially feel really strong about is just, here we are in November, just taking some time to maybe say thank you.
Absolutely. It starts with gratitude, and I feel like life now is busier than ever. And as people are out on the road, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day of like, I'm going 80 miles an hour and people are flying past me like I'm standing still. And it feels like everybody's angry. And it's just, I think everyone's so busy and there's just so much. And if we can realize that the month of November, Thanksgiving is coming, and what's Thanksgiving about? It's, it starts with an attitude of gratitude. And I'm so grateful for you, for, as my husband and my partner and in life, but then I'm grateful for our business and for our clients and our friends and our family. And there's just, if everybody could take a moment and just kind of pump the brakes of life here and just look around. Who are you thankful for? How can we show greater kindness or ways of gratitude in a new way, a new level?
Oh, that sounds really good. Christmas music starts on Friday.
This is true. He has his countdown going. Don't let anyone know.
No, don't let anyone fool you. I'm very excited about Christmas music starting up. And I know some people don't like it right away, but, I think that it's that happiness that is with it. I think the holidays is that time for family. It is that time for being grateful. It's that time for showing gratitude. And I really think it starts right there at Halloween. Halloween is our kids' favorite holiday. I
think it's the candy.
I think it's the candy.
Maybe it's the costumes. I don't know.
One of the things I thought about on that is it's really that start of the holiday season and that sense of community. We were watching Hocus Pocus over the weekend, and our daughter loved the movie Hocus Pocus. But I was thinking about how in that movie that community is so wrapped up in Halloween, and it's so like it was back in the 1960s and such. And then seeing neighbors and having them come and get candy yesterday and having that camaraderie and such starts that holiday season, that attitude of gratitude, that reaching out and being part of a community.
Yeah, it really is. And each community has their own little traditions. That's one of the neat parts about Halloween. This year, our daughter ended up going to a friend's house in a neighborhood that we hadn't been in before, and I was blown away. They just knew how to do it up. And just, every house, there was people there just waiting on the driveway and handing out candy and the decorations and music, and just everybody's so happy too. Right. And kids polite and trick or treat and thank you. And it's a wonderful thing.
Well, you remember years ago when we would go out with the kids, it was because one of us had to be home.
Yep.
For handing out candy. One of us got to be with the kids. And who got to go on the block that had the Jell-O shots and the pudding shots? And, so it was...
Well, and each community has their own, so I was over here at this other community and the dad was telling me, oh yeah, these guys, they always have cider and donuts. And then over here, there's, the haunted house on this street and the haunted house on that street. And it's a way that we all interact together in our sense of community that is so cool as Livingston County,
Right. And I'm kind of struck by that this year because, Howell is in the playoffs this year for football.
Oh, yeah.
And our son is on the marching band out there. And I've been struck by that sense of community as well, that I see it on Facebook and I see how excited people are over just being involved in something. Right. And I think that's a great thing moving forward. So, shout out to them that I hope they do amazing this coming week against Grand Blanc. And I hope I get a chance to go down to Ford Field and see them play. But it's a great thing. And I'm looking forward to the holiday season. So, I also wanted to just give a shout out to all those people that support us, either being our lenders, our inspectors, those other agents in the county that we work with, because in Livingston County, I love that it's such a sense of community that we're all,
no matter the brokerage, everybody knows each other. And
they're all looking out for each other.
Community.
Everyone's always friendly. I never feel like I'm in competition with other agents. And I think that is just an amazing thing and speaks so much to the sense of community. To the people at Livingston County Association of Realtors, which I'm on the board with, that they're just so supportive there. Keller Williams that are supportive as well. And all of you people out there listening to our podcast.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, honest to goodness, your brother doesn't even live in the county and he listens to all of our episodes, and I'm just tickled pink. And I think that is the most awesome thing in the world. And big shout out to him because he is fantastic. He's so good with his niece and nephews. And
no, I was just so happy to see that he was listening to it and such.
Yeah.
So that is a really good thing, and our kids, teachers and such, that I know that the past 2 years have been pretty tough for people in education.
Absolutely.
And they've done such a good job.
Yeah. Yeah. The school districts all across the board have been phenomenal. Everybody working so hard in the, the medical professionals. Oh my goodness. Right. What a time. What a time. So we're grateful for you guys as well.
Yeah. Oh, and I want to take a moment to mention cheer as well. This was our first year involved in cheer.
Yeah.
And wow, talk about some supportive coaches taking care of these young girls and helping them through and having them learn all of those cheers and being out at all those games, whether it was hot or cold or raining.
That's what I learned about being in Brighton is that, Brighton cheer and football, wow, does it have just an unbelievable community behind it. It's just,
yes.
I'm grateful for Livingston County.
100% grateful for Livingston County.
Everybody tied to all this, it's been a pleasure doing this podcast, and as we continue, and just to try to give back and let you guys know, all these great resources and great opportunities and festivals and fun things to do.
And finally, thank you to our guests that we've had. It has been so amazing to meet so many interesting people and to start to learn about some of the different businesses. Some of them we knew about, some of them we learned quite a bit about during this process.
Absolutely. There's just so much, And so within that, I just want to encourage everybody that as you're running around and preparing for the holidays and all that, just try to slow down and try to find that thanks in Thanksgiving.
Yep. And Salvation Army, Realtor Ring Day is coming up.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
Angela's going to look up the date here while I talk about it for a second. So Realtor Ring Day all over the county, Livingston County and Realtors, we will be out in front of businesses with our kettles collecting money for the Salvation Army.
Friday, December the 3rd.
Yep, Friday, December the 3rd. So I think we will be out. Are we out in front of Walmart again?
Yep.
So what time are we out in front of Walmart?
I believe that's the 4 to 6 shift.
So we will be out in front of Walmart at 4 to 6. We will have our Bluetooth speaker there, and we will be listening to Christmas carols.
Because that's what Don does.
It is, and my daughter will be singing them with me,
yes.
And we'll maybe have one of our sons, if not both of our sons, with us at some point there.
Yeah, we'll have to see here.
But we have a blast at it every year. We get to meet some interesting people. Sometimes we see some of friends, family, clients that come by, people we haven't talked to in a couple of years. But we just look forward to being involved in that. We have the Fantasy of Lights parade coming up, which our sons will be marching in, which is amazing as well. So there's all these community events coming up to be involved in. And it's this time of year where you realize how important your community is and how wonderful it is to be involved in it. So from the bottom of our hearts, I wanted to just say thank you to everybody.
Absolutely.
Yep. So is there anything else you wanted to wrap up here on our 12th episode?
I don't know. It's kind of, just sort of rolling with it. Is other people are interested in being guests, or if there's any business that you'd like to see on here, please let us know. We are open to ideas. As I give back to you guys, we really want to offer value and offer the best that the county has, because there's just so much in it. I don't think that we'll even be able to run out of ideas.
No, we could be 3 years into this and still be talking to new businesses. And that's one of the aspects I'm going to love about this.
Yes, but we love hearing what people want to hear. So,
yep. So please check us out on Facebook. Find us on Spotify, Google, Apple. Just Google us and check out our episodes. Again, this is episode number 12. We will have many more ahead of us. And again, thank you to everybody. We hope you have a wonderful start to your holiday season this month. Check out those cider mills, get those donuts, have an apple pie, all those wonderful things at this time of year, and the football that's left, because we just love the football.
This is true. Well, thank you, everybody, and welcome to Livingston.